Hello and welcome to We Got Issues, the only comic book show that combines comic lore with Star Trek and bad dad jokes. I'm Brian Compton, aka BComp, and joining me as always is the bro to my Arrow, the Bronin to my Professor X, the Josh Brolin to my Brosario Dawson, Josh Markwith.
Brosario Dawson, I haven't heard that one.
I don't know, I literally on the fly, I was like, who else rhymes with an R-O? Here we go.
I liked it was like rapid fire. It's like bro, much like, we'll be talking about more, but
Yeah,
the bro to my bro. And it just kind of reminds me of when we watched How I Met Your Mother back in the days.
Yeah. Potato chip, baby.
Potato chip. Bro Abraham Lincoln. No, what was it? Joseph Bro Lieberman?
Yeah, Geraldine Broraro.
And she's going to start just naming names. But Broax Snyder. That's a good. Oh, that's horrible.
I like Josh Brolin.
No, yeah, because it's his name. It's Josh Brolin. It's so stupid. It's on so many levels, man. It's
Josh Brolin. Okay, well,
oh man, like James Brolin. There's even just more. Goodness. But yeah, so yeah, thanks for that wonderful intro. And honestly, before we even get into all the meat and potatoes, the brotatoes, and I just wanted to give a quick shout out to our pals over at Waffle Press Movie Podcast. They had us on to chat about the Penguin with the co-host Gene Versa. He's a former G4 alum, and he worked with you a lot, right? At G4.
Yeah. He was one of my editors.
No, that's awesome. And then they have like a show on there called Serving Up Comics, and they had us come and talk about, like I said, the Penguin TV show and just kind of the comic tie-ins. And of course, your boys Brian and Josh took over that show like it was our own, and which I felt bad for Gene, but he handled it like a champ. So please go over and we just took over.
Just ran over him.
We just took. Oh, it was like this, but then Gene kind of like, can I? And then it was basically if you want a We Got Issues like secondary show, go check out that episode. Go check it out. Yeah, it was really fun. Gene again handled it like a champ. He was a great host. It's a fun show, and we had a lot of fun just discussing the Penguin and all that. It's kind of like a 0.5 sequel to our Gotham Central chat. So. Make sure to check that out. It's on YouTube, it's on Spotify, it's on Apple, it's on SoundCloud, it's on all the other places that we are on.
We will eventually get on YouTube at some point.
Yes, we're working on it. We have to be more camera ready. I'm not doing for
that.
YouTube. No.
Well, you know what I want to do, and I mean, like this is gonna sound stupid, but I always want. It's like I don't have the resources I had when I worked at like Nerdist and G4 and all that, but I always wanted to just do like the full on like smash cut images of like what we're talking about. I'm like, oh, that actually takes a lot of work and energy, and I don't want to deal with that right.
Yeah, no, I mean it's a little hard for us to know, but we kind of had that when we were on the Alpha. We got issues. We had my brother,
your brother was firing the images though, yo.
Yeah, he was producer extraordinaire, Nate Markwith. He was in the back just throwing out the images that we had from him. We had firing. I mean, we honestly I'm gonna blow smoke up his butt right now, and he's gonna love this. But he kind of made that show better, so it was a big part of it. So it doesn't mean I like him, but it's just it's just
know what? He was one of the hires that I insisted upon to the producers of the other shows he was on. So
yeah. So enough about him. I don't want to talk about him anymore. This is not his show. He knows what he did.
Well, let's talk about today's show. In this show, what are we talking about, Josh?
Well, we're taking aim, Brian, at Earth's Mightiest Marksman. We're talking about Hawkeye.
Now, before we get into that, though, we got to talk to you about what? Your snack game. Now, have you ever been munching on some gummies or trail mix and said to yourself, this is good, but it would be a lot better if it was just a little bit more mysterious and had a hint of legendary? Well, then you must check out Duff and Shaw Snacks. Whether it's Buffalo Ranch cashews or sacred gummy bears, Duff and Shaw snacks and candy are curated from the most mysterious and undiscovered places on planet Earth, and you will uncover flavors that will give you stories to tell your grandchildren. Go to duffandshaw.com/issues today and check out all they've got and more. That's duffandshaw.com/issues, and the most legendary snacks in the world can finally be yours. Bam!
Yay! Yay!
We did it.
All right.
We still have a sponsor.
Amazing.
Somehow.
Yay!
We have a sponsor.
I'm half crying because of that beautiful read, and I'm half crying because we still have a sponsor. It brings tears to these little baby blue eyes. Oh, okay. So thanks, Brian. Thanks for reading that.
Rock and roll.
Yeah. All right. We kind of went back to the drawing board, and we kind of looked at the past couple episodes, and we kind of figured out that we kind of spent the last few weeks talking about more like heavier material. With the Authority is pretty serious. Gotham Central is pretty serious. Marvel's, serious. So we thought we'd kind of pull back because, it's the holiday season, and we wanted to read something a little bit more lighter and have a little bit more fun. So that's why we wanted to focus on this Hawkeye book, which is specifically the Matt Fraction. And I'm going to say David Aja, but I know that is wrong.
Yeah, we'll get into it now.
I've
heard Matt refer to him as David, and I've also heard his last name is pronounced Aja. So it's either David Aja or David Aja. Either way, I'm going to just feel like an a-hole. So I'm sure it'll probably just revert to David Aja just for the sake of consistency.
Yeah. Just the way that I read it in my head is David Aja. So I apologize, David, about that. But
because that's the problem. Is like I think he did a book with Anna Senti, and she calls him David. So I'm just like, I don't know.
It's kind of we don't
know.
And we need him to be on it, just like to say his name. And so again, I mentioned that it was around the holidays, and we wanted to read this because it's lighter. We wanted a lighter type of book just for our enjoyment, and we'll discuss this a little bit more down the line. But this is eventually the basis for the holiday special series for the Marvel MCU with Hawkeye. And it also got me thinking, like, what kind of holiday specials did you like as a kid, or do you still watch?
Oh, I mean, for the holidays? I mean,
for the holidays.
I rewatched this. I'm like, this is a good holiday, kind of throwback. But I mean, like, for me, I hate to say it's like the typical stuff. Die Hard, Lethal Weapon, A Christmas Story, the usual.
Yeah, those one of these is not like the other, and that's Lethal Weapon.
What about you, man?
I don't think I can start the holiday season without at least seeing the Muppets Christmas Carol at least once, and that's at least once. And then it gets in my head, and I have to see Michael Caine being Michael Caine with.
You do a Michael Caine impression from.
I do a horrible one. It's Michael Caine. Is that Jaws? I'm Michael Caine. See, that's my Michael Caine. Or
pretty good. Better than mine.
I failed you. Oh, I failed you, Master. I failed you. That's him in Batman.
I'll take it.
We do our best with what we got. So I think, and then I love the Rankin Bass. The claymation specials. My family has this horrible joke whenever my beard gets a little bit too long, because I have a big red bushy beard. So they call me Cornelius from the Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer one, where he's digging for silver and gold.
If I knew what that show was, I would laugh at the jokes.
I think once you even just see a picture, if you Google the picture and then you just picture that as me, it's hurtful. It's hurtful, and they know it is, and yet they still laugh at my face about it.
That's family for you.
That's what it is. Yeah.
So, well, as we mentioned, we are tackling Volume 4 of Hawkeye, care of Matt Fraction, and predominantly artist David Aja. David Aja. I'm not going to be able to keep going that, man. I'm sorry, dude. It made its debut back in August of 2012, and it ran about 22 issues plus an annual. It won numerous Eisners, is partially the basis for the Hawkeye series, as you mentioned, on Disney Plus a few years back. Now, that all said, Josh, do you want to take a stab at doing the blurb on the back?
Yes, I would love to. And just a warning. This is one of the best blurbs on the back. It's so corny and punny. It's amazing, like pun intended, very much so. So here's the blurb on the back. Clint Barton, seasoned pro. Kate Bishop, talented rookie. The two Hawkeyes hanging out, swapping arrows, teaming up, but not in that way. Just bow buddies. No strings attached. Except a bowstring, silly.
Ew.
Clint has enough complications with an ex-girlfriend and ex-wife and current friend girl and a redhead with the car of his dreams. Plus, that building he just bought, the army of gangsters in tracksuits that want it back, and an issue-hogging dog with a nose for murder and a mouth for pizza. Oh, and Madam Mask, a killer clown, and Clint's deadbeat brother Barney. With days off like these, fighting Thanos with the Avengers doesn't seem so bad. It's enough to make Kate need some time away. We hear LA is a nice time. We hear LA is nice this time of year. But what's that canine point of view on all this? And hey, ever wonder how a sign language comic would work? It's the Eisner grabbing adventures of Hawkeye, Katie Kate, and Lucky the Pizza Dog. Face it, bro. You just hit the bullseye. It's just amazing.
Man, there's some good stuff in there. Although I was going to say, I almost wish they had just done what they do in the intro for the first issue, which is simply Clint Barton, a.k.a. Hawkeye, became the greatest sharpshooter known to man. He then joined the Avengers. This is what he does when he is not being an Avenger. That's all you need to know. Boom, right into the first issue.
Yeah, quick, succinct, and that's like, but I mean, I love all the puns, though.
Oh, yeah, no, I mean, the no strings attached is pizza chef.
Except bowstrings, silly.
Hey, what are your thoughts on the book? In general, kind of general thoughts.
I mean, overall, this is one of my favorite books of all time. So there's a couple of books that bring me back to loving comics, and this is one of those. This is one of the ones that I think I had once a month. I was waiting for it once a month because I got all the singles at first.
Right. Okay, so you're ready monthly.
Yeah, and I was excited every month for the new one. I was waiting for it because it had everything I liked in a comic book. The writing was on point. The art is on point. The stories are great. It has a lot of fun mixed in with it, and then some serious parts, but it's generally fun. It's an easy read because me no like read words too much, and it's a great EV series, if that makes sense. Yeah. It's kind of like a USA TV series. Now, what did you think about it?
Well, it's funny you should mention this TV series. I think one of the ways like Matt Fraction looked at it was like the Rockford Files or the Avengers, like the old Avengers, not the comic book or anything like that, but Steed and Peele. Like it was very much like like Adventure of the Week kind of thing. I would like you read this in single form when it came out, and I picked up the trades later on and kind of reread them all, obviously for research of this. I loved the book when it came out. I thought it was absolutely brilliant then. And rereading it, I still think it is now. I have the appreciation of it is wrong. And this is one of those books that benefits from rereads. And I'll get into that later, but it warrants the reread. You're like, oh, there's so many things I didn't catch the first time around that we're catching this. There are a few things I'm a little nitpicky on that like drop it down to like from like, drop it down like a percentage point or so. But overall, this is good stuff. This is really, really good stuff.
Yeah, it was around the time too Marvel was kind of going on all cylinders for me. This was around Wade's Daredevil, right?
Yeah, it's around that era.
Time. Yep. So I had that same type of feel and fun with it. The main character, of course, is Hawkeye. And Brian, you are the encyclopedia. You are a history man. What can you give me more of a light history of Hawkeye, the character?
Yeah, for those of you who've always seen him like in the movies or whatever, in the Jeremy Renner performance, like for those of you who don't know, actually Hawkeye started off as a villain for Iron Man back in Tales of Suspense 57, 1964. He was started off as a sort of like a carny sideshow attraction who was just an excellent marksman, and he sees Iron Man. He's like, this guy, I can be better than him. I can be a better superhero than this cat. And of course, one thing leads to another, and he's like, gets caught with jewels that aren't his, and so the cops are after him, and he becomes a villain and ends up working for Black Widow, who at that time was a villain. Eventually, though, after a kind of a series of back and forths, he eventually reforms and becomes an Avenger along with Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch in Avengers 16. Throughout the years, he would kind of go from the team lead and strike out on his own, join other teams like the Defenders. And speaking of striking out, he would also strike out the ladies. He was not as successful.
The ladies.
He was not as successful as his arrow slinging counterpart on the distinguished competition, if you know what I mean. But he eventually did meet his wife, Bobby Morse, aka Mockingbird, who would eventually marry. When he first meets her on their first kind of adventure, this is kind of a big moment for him, and it's a big part of the book too, or is a theme that runs through the book, is they're both being held, not hostage, but they're being held prisoner, and they're being affected by subliminal waves causing them to fight each other. And the only way he can stop it is he has to literally put a sonic arrow in his ear to blow out his eardrums, so that way he can not be affected by the subliminal and stop the fight and beat the villain and all that. It's around this time, so he has to wear an earpiece, but it's around this time that he goes on to form the West Coast Avenger, helps form the West Coast Avengers. A whole bunch of shenanigans from there. The team disbands after his wife dies. He goes off to the Counter-Earth, comes back, joins the Avengers, joins the Thunderbolts, leads the Thunderbolts, and eventually rejoins the Avengers, only to end up dead in the stupidest way possible, which I used with copyright thing, because Bendis.
So, it's just like the general response, because Bendis.
Well,
that's all you really need to say.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I really do like a lot of Bendis' stuff, but there's some things where it's it's literally because Bendis, and I'm not trying to be mean to the man. I know that he's one of the most prolific writers in comics, but it's I really do think his death was stupid, and I don't want to harp on this too long because my thoughts on this. But Josh, do you want to retell his death in all of its stupid glory?
I will try my best, because it's
30 seconds. Go.
30 seconds. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Okay, so this is around Avengers 502. What happens is they've just been attacked by Jack of Hearts. They've been attacked by all these enemies. They don't know who's attacking them. All of a sudden, here come the Kree. The Kree are on Earth. They're attacking New York. Hawkeye is trying to fight a bunch. He gets shot by a Kree soldier in the back of his arrow quiver. He jumps on the back of another Kree guy. He doesn't know what to do. He goes, not like this, not like this. It hits the jetpack, kind of goes towards the Kree ship and blows up. And that's it.
Yeah, basically, it's part of the Avengers disassembled arc, like you just mentioned. And he gets hit in the back in his quiver because he has exploding arrows back there. And instead of just take it off, he jumps on the back of another soldier, hits their booster, and then flies it into a ship to blow the ship up, screaming, not like this, not like this, not like this. Which, I don't know, I feel like you could have just taken the quiver off, Hal.
Between the first two, not like this, he could have taken the quiver up.
Yeah, the amount of times he says not like... Yeah, the amount of times he says, look, I get it was for dramatic effect, and it was. When I read that, I was like, oh my God, no! And then I'm looking back, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Anyway, he comes back to life again due to some House of M shenanigans with Scarlet Witch, because, again, Bendis. Which is a trademark. And then he comes back as Ronin and kind of kicks some ass that way. And the big idea, who's Ronin? Oh, well, it was Hawkeye the whole time.
Right.
And that kind of leads us to where this kind of book eventually takes place.
Yeah, and with Ronin, too, they try to keep it a mystery, but then he was starting to do quips, in the Ronin. You're like, well, I thought you were going to be serious. And then he's kind of, him and Spider-Man are having, quip-offs a little bit, during a fight.
To be fair,
I'll try to be.
Every single one of Bendis's books, everybody quips. I don't care if you're Thor, Iron Man. It's everyone quipped, and it was actually pretty annoying because it should have just... I don't want to see Thor quipping.
No. It is thus thyest hands down and thyest fight,
Yeah, I'm like, no, that character shouldn't be quipping. You could be sarcastic if you're Iron Man, but you shouldn't be quipping. I'm sorry, Captain America shouldn't be quipping.
No. Yeah.
That all said, well, you did bring up a good point that, Hawkeye is now kind of known for his quips, whatever kind of personality traits and kind of what's the powers and personality behind Hawkeye?
Yeah. So Hawkeye is a is a normal person character, but he does something extremely well, and that's with ranged and aiming weapons. It's from archery, and he is known mostly for the numerous kind of trick arrows that, comics. You can't just have a guy shooting bows and arrows. You have to have some comic little soup in there. I don't know what that means. It's just something I just said. We'll keep it in. But you have stuff like the putty arrow, the acid arrow, stuff that blows up, stuff that, like an arrow that shoots a gun. Who knows? But and then you have boomerang arrows, which is amazing because you have to put respect on the boomerang arrow.
You respect the boomerang.
And then also they have the the punch, the
boxing glove arrow. Isn't that more Green Arrow though?
That is more Green Arrow, but I mean, I don't think you can be an Arrow character without at least that once.
Yeah, I agree.
But and mostly, I mean, in this book too, I love the use of the putty arrow, just because they know how ridiculous it is. But the putty arrow, and just the drive off is amazing.
That's great.
But with that though, he is one of the hot-headed kind of guy who doesn't like authority. Has to always question things. He's the guy. He's the first guy to argue about a mission, or the first guy to kind of start a fight with somebody. Most like the characters in the Avengers though too. Like even though he's that guy, he questions authority, but he respects Cap. Like he'll challenge him, but then he'll be like, oh, okay, like I just want you to explain it a little bit more for everybody in the room, and then I'll go with it. Like, and he's one of those super ultra confident characters because he has to be. Yeah, you literally have the one of the smartest people in the world in a moving tank suit on your left, and then the God of Thunder on your right, and you're supposed to have the same contribution to the team as them.
I'm using a weapon from the Paleolithic era. You know what I mean?
Right. Like what is in Avengers, the movie Avengers 2. It's like there's flying robots everywhere. We're on a city that's flying and have a bow and arrow. Nothing makes sense. It's that kind of pep talk like, and he knows it, but he has to be, because you have to be, when you're a trick shot person or when you're the aiming person, you have to know that your shot is going to hit because people are depending on you.
You're just a dude with a bow at that point.
For sure. And when Captain America is depending on you to do something, you might as well pretty damn do it. So because he's cocky and, he kind of has a little bit more, he's more insecure than a lot of other people on that team. And it may people think it's more showboatiness, but again, it's like he has to be that guy. He has to make that shot because there's a book, there's an issue in Avenging Spider-Man with Zeb Wells and Greg Land.
Your boys.
Yeah. Okay. I'm just going to move past that just for this moment. There's a bad guy running away, and he's kind of getting away, and Spider-Man's going on the chase, but Hawkeye's like, you know what? I got this. No problem. And he shoots the arrow, and then it ends up not going far enough. It ends up missing. And Spider-Man stops the guy, and he sees the arrow, and he kind of realizes, like, yeah, Hawkeye acts this way because he has to be this way. Like, there's no missing with him because he's part of this team, and it has. So he takes the arrow, and he takes it back, and he kind of makes it look like the arrow hit him. He's like, yeah, you got him, dude. It's like, because he doesn't, it kind of destroys his whole purpose in a sense of the team.
Yeah. It would destroy his confidence if he hadn't made that shot. And the thing is, like, normally he would. I did read that issue. So I think it's Avenging Spider-Man number 4. And it's like, he's under attack. He's like, I got it. Spider's, no, I'm going to go get him. He's like, no, I got it. And he fires the arrow early, I think, to just like, to really land it. But I think if, not if the pressure was on, but if Spider-Man had listened to him, maybe, I think the shot would have made it. But, that's just my interpretation of the situation.
If ands or buts, But
whatever.
But no, I just like that
it's good. It's a good issue.
Yeah,
it's good.
And it's a good characterization of him because he has to be that guy.
Yeah. Well, speaking of like Hawkeyes, there is another Hawkeye in this book as well, and I think we'd be
What?
remiss if we'd be
Two Hawkeyes?
I know. What? You're a big Young Avengers guy. Tell us about Kate Bishop.
Yeah. I was a fan of the book that came when it came out. It came out right after Avengers Disassembled. There was a couple books that kind of came from that and that event. And Avengers Disassembled led to Young Avengers, which was it was like a team of Young Avengers. That's going to be horrible. No, it's a team
like
of
the Teen Titans. It's like Teen Titans, essentially.
Yeah, it was, but it was good because it was like a Teen Titans mixed with JSA.
Yeah,
if it makes sense, because they weren't just like sidekicks.
They weren't sidekicks. Yeah,
no, they were legacy characters. So you have the Iron Patriot, which was or not Iron Patriot, excuse me, Iron Lad, which was Kang.
Iron Man. Yeah.
Well, he's Kang from the future.
Yeah,
who saw himself becoming evil, so he wanted to try to stop that. So he tried to kind of build a team of other heroes throughout the history, or have a lineage to the history. So that's where Billy from the Agatha All Along show comes from. Excuse me. And that's where Kate Bishop comes from, which she is actually a little bit of an outlier of the whole team because she doesn't have a direct lineage to Hawkeye himself. Like she doesn't have any.
She's a fangirl.
Yeah, she's a big fangirl with a lot of money. But she kind of, so she starts from a step behind of everybody else on the team, but she quickly makes herself one of the leaders of the team because of just how she is and how how tenacious she is, her tenacity. I said the same thing twice. And just how she becomes good with the book, kind of like Hawkeye himself. Like it's just through just the human sheer force of will of becoming with these other kids who are massively powerful too at their age.
They have abilities,
Yeah, and I mean, in at the core of her, some people would see her as just a spoiled rich girl who's kind of going for kicks and the adrenaline rush. But I mean, she does it for a full reason, just because she was assaulted. You find out that she was assaulted. Before the team starts, and she doesn't want that to happen to anybody else.
Yeah,
or she wants to take back the power herself.
Yeah,
so that's why she becomes. She picks up the mantle, and then she kind of becomes not more Hawkeye than Hawkeye, but she becomes, even Hawkeye himself was just like, okay, yeah, you're doing a little bit better at this a little bit than I am. So, what do you think about Kate though? It's just a character in general.
Oh, it's like I was also a fan. I mean, it's funny when we're way off topic at this point, but when Young Avengers was announced, I was like, oh please, like this is like a cash in. Boy, was I wrong. I was surprised how good the book was, and I was happy to see her kind of grow her own legs and become her own character and become fully formed.
Yeah, totally. And I think that's what was great about this book. It was Hawkeye, but it's kind of like the whole Spider-Man with Peter Parker, Miles Morales. Both can be Spider-Man, and both can be their own separate characters.
I hate to say this, but like DC had been doing it for years already. How many Flashes are at DC? How many Green Lanterns are at DC? It's like, why is this suddenly a thing? Oh, we have 2 Caps, or we have 2 Spideys, or we have 2 Hawkeyes. Like, okay, like literally, DC has how many Green Lanterns?
That's very true. That's a good point. It's very true.
You know what I mean? Like, how many Flashes are there? Like, I'm sorry, like that's not a problem. And if anybody has a problem with that, then go talk to DC. They managed to make it work for the last 60 years.
That's a very good point. I didn't even think about it like that. So yeah, it's a very good point. Especially when you saw one of the Green Lanterns in that Superman trailer.
I know. Oh.
That we can discuss that.
Let's say that
when we get closer to the movie.
We got issues after dark.
We got issues after dark.
After a drink or two, we'll get into that.
the bowl cut edition.
But yeah, we should get back onto this book.
I know, yeah, right. So who's the creative team on this book, though? We kind of mentioned them, but let's get more deep into who they are.
Yeah, it's your boy, Matt Fraction. He's great. He's predominantly known for his independent work over at Image, like for books like Sex Criminals and Casanova. But he's obviously had some significant runs over at Marvel as well on books like Iron Man and Iron Fist and Fantastic Four and Thor and Punisher and X-Men. He also is known for writing the 2011 event, Fear Itself, I know he was also a part of the whole Avengers versus X-Men, so the dude's been around the block and knows his Marvel, you know. And honestly, I think he was like one of the showrunners for that Godzilla show Monarch as well.
Yeah.
Matt Fraction is one of those writers again, where if his name is on a book, I pick it up. I don't care what it is. It's the Mark Waid Archie thing, where it's like, oh, you're writing Archie, sure, I'll pick it up. You know, oh, this turns out this is really good. You know what I mean? So it's like he's just one of those writers. If his name's on a book, I don't care what it is, I'll pick it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you trust that he knows what he's doing, and he knows he wouldn't take a character without having a story ready for it. Yeah. And so Hawkeye though too, is Hawkeye kind of like his first kind of like his coming out party a little bit, where he mostly did stuff with Brubaker before that.
He did a lot of stuff with Brubaker, and there was a lot of stuff coming out. The all new X-Men, but I think like he'd done Punisher before that. I think he had done some Thor before that too. But you know, Hawkeye definitely put him on the map, I would say. Like his Punisher run is kind of like not questionable, but it's fine. You know, his Fantastic Four stuff is fine. You know, his Iron Man is really, really good.
I love his Iron Man.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think
good.
That's one of those ones that we could probably do later. But you know, and I really enjoy Fear Itself. I know there's a lot of hit or miss with that, but I enjoyed the book. You know, but like I said, Matt Fraction is just a writer that you're doing that book, cool. I'm picking it up. I'll see how you do.
Yeah, for sure. I just love his writing. He brings fun twists to his writing, like he did on this book.
This book is, he even admits, like, he's like, I don't know what it was with this book, but if I could replicate it again, I would do it over and over again, but it worked. And I think it's a real testament to the artist. And if you want to talk about the artist, feel free.
I was just about to push it to you. Like, he worked really well with David Aja. Yeah. I said it right that time.
Yes.
And David is a Spanish artist. He's mostly known for his Marvel work on books like Iron Fist before this one in Hawkeye. And he did some one-shots, too, though, with Dark Horse. With who was he doing that with?
He did. So he did. Besides the covers and all the one-shots and fill-ins that he did with Marvel, he did do a 4-issue miniseries with Ann Nocenti, who did like a big Daredevil run back in the day with Marvel. It was called The Seeds. Unfortunately, this is crazy. Is like they only put 2 issues out before it was not unlisted, but it's like we're not publishing it anymore. And that was due to like the pandemic and all that. But it was finally collected all into a trade. So if you're really interested in that, feel free to check that out.
And it wasn't just him though on the book, right? Who else was?
There was a ton of artists on this book, and they're all great artists at that. Francisco Francavilla, Javier Peludio, Steve Lieber, Annie Wu. I mean, it was a crazy embarrassment of riches, for lack of a better word, for the artists on this book.
Totally. And what I liked about all the different artists though too was it was seamless. It wasn't like normal when they have different artists on the book. It's very, very, very noticeable. This one is very seamless, where if you didn't really know kind of like the details or intricacies of kind of the art, it's a little bit hard to tell.
Yeah. I think it's very, for me, the art itself is very, with the exception of like maybe Francisco Francavilla, like the art is very like, that has that indie feel to it, where it's very like not like people aren't ripped or muscled out or jacked to the 9 6-packs or something like that. It's very kind of that independent feel, or that like kind of foreign art feel. But the thing what works is the sequential art of it all. Like that is where David Aja just shines on this book. Like the art is great, but like what he does with the paneling, and like again going back to Matt Fraction, he's like, one point just like wrote out like, hey, I'm going to do this thing. He's like, okay, what if we did this instead? And he's just like, sure. And he's like, I wouldn't even have known how to panel that, like in like actually writing in a script. And it's funny because I don't know if people know about what the Marvel method is of scripting. Do you know about it, Josh? Or I'll just tell everybody.
You go into it. I know some about it. I've read that book. I know what you're talking about.
So for those of you who don't know, for the longest time, Marvel had this method, it was called the Marvel method, where basically they would just send a plot to their artists. Like the writer was like, hey, in this issue, this is going to happen. Maybe here's a few lines of dialogue, and here's a few things that I want you to do. Afterwards, like the artist would get, okay, I've got, a page and a half of plot. I'm going to panel out the whole issue over 22 pages, then send it back to the writer, and then they'll write in the dialogue. And over time, and I think it was like when kind of Bendis kind of became like the big writer of, at Marvel, that changed. It became much more like writer focused, where it's like the writers should get panel 1 this, panel 2 this, panel 3 this, panel 4 this. And I think with this book, from what I read, Matt Fraction's, we went back to the Marvel Mesh with this. I was like, hey, this is what I want to do. And there'd be a lot of back and forth communication about what we're doing. But he's like, this is what I'd want to do. And man, he's like, David just like nailed it. He does not give these things like, I couldn't have written this. I couldn't have visualized this. And that's what's so great about this book, is some of the visuals in it and the panel work is brilliant. And also like the coloring in the book, I believe it's Matt Hollingsworth. It's sensational. It is sensational.
It's so muted, and it's not a typical comic book flashy. It's very like blues and purples, and very, very cool colors too. It's a cool color palette.
Cool is the best way to look at it. So like, the whole book is like this. And what's great too is because all of the issues, for the most part, while there is an overarching story to the whole thing, almost every single issue can be read independently. You know what I mean? Like every issue is almost like its own little story. Yes, it does tie into bigger narratives, but for the most part, yes, there's an issue or two that's like part one, part two. For the most part, though, everything is like you have a beginning, middle, and end. Or in the case of these books, because it's not linear storytelling at times, it's a middle, beginning, and then an end. You know what I mean?
Right. Or you see the same moment through different angles through 3 different issues, which is great. And I do love what we're talking about the art too. Just the covers of all these issues were so good. Yeah. It's very Jock-like for me. That artist Jock.
Artist Jock,
which is a very simple color palette too. It's like the white background with minimalist images, and I think they even used a lot of it for the
Hawkeye TV
titles.
Show.
The title sequence of the Hawkeye TV shows and stuff like that. And then one other panel I just have to talk about is that that panel that looks like the side-scrolling Avengers game.
Oh yeah, the Avengers, Captain America and the Avengers.
Yeah, which I have when I was in Portland a long time ago, they have like this nickel arcade, and I just remember going to with my uncle, and I played that game. I did at least like $1 of the game because I was so bad at it, but just playing that game because it was Captain America, Hawkeye, and
Vision,
the white, the all white,
the white Vision. Yeah, who's the
Iron Man?
Character? Iron Man.
That's right. Iron Man. Yeah. And that's what just that whole the typical like arcade side scrolling.
And they have like panel. But they have that paneling in the actual issue itself.
Yeah, and a lot of the paneling or the storytelling done in the art is kind of not shifted, but it's like influenced a lot of other books that you see later on. Like, they do that a lot, and they did a lot in the Superior Foes of Spider-Man.
Yeah, well, Steve Lieber again.
Wave. Yep. Next Wave. Ages of Hate. They did do it a lot in Tom Taylor's Nightwing too.
Yeah, it's very clean. The art is very clean, and you get a sense of. It's really good in the sense like you do get a sense of scope. It's like, okay, this is a dude. Like I said, this is what this guy does in his time off when he's not fighting Thanos. It's a dude, and you get the sense that this is just a dude with a bow and arrow. And I love that about this book is like I said, the use of that throughout, and with the exception, like I said, of Francisco Francavilla, like all of those artists kind of have those clean lines, and it's very easy to tell, what's going on. I do think it's interesting because you talking about the first arc or the first issue of the book is where they introduce like the kind of the recurring villains of the book, the tracksuit mafia,
bro, hey bro,
hey bro,
yeah,
bro.
There's such a great intro to the character or just the bad guys, because we don't see them in comics before this, right?
No, I think Tracksuit Mafia is the first time we see them.
Yeah, they're instantly impactful, which is great. It's
they're instantly recognizable too. It's like, oh yeah, if they're not in the Hawkeye show, I remember it was like they messed up. These guys were instant, like, and it's so hard nowadays too to like make an impact in comics. We've almost seen it all, Yeah,
but I think they were in the Hawkeye TV show.
No, I know that. That's what I'm saying. Like, I'm just saying.
I'm sorry.
No, I just mean like it's so hard to create something new that stands out from all of the other noise. And they did, and there was all it was a bunch of Eastern European, dudes in tracksuits saying "bro" with baseball bats, and it's like, man, I get them,
Yeah, totally, and it works so well because you couldn't do that with Hydra agents, or you can't do it with AIM agents or something. You needed something new or something more grounded.
Yep. Well, and that's the thing is they're equally comedic and they're equally terrifying. The only other book that this might have worked in is something like a Deadpool book, maybe. You know what I mean? Like if you see Wolverine going against you, bro, it's like, dude, you're gonna be sliced. You know what I mean?
Slice. It works because they're threatening, non-threatening. If that makes sense. It's same with Hawkeye in this sense where he's not Captain America. He's not an Iron Man, but these aren't Hydra, these aren't AIM, these aren't the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants or anything. So it's definitely a good one for his level.
The other thing I really liked about, like you said, even kind of go back to that first issue, I kind of joked about middle, beginning, end, is the nonlinear storytelling that they do. Mm-hmm. Like you do, like I said, this book does warrant the reread because you'll be times like, wait a minute, where are we going? Like it'll be a full panel, like present day, and then like, oh, the next panel or the next page will be 5 hours earlier, and then the next panel will be 5 hours later, and then back to the present. And they do a lot of that, like switching through the timeline and kind of keeping you on your toes. And he connects them through like silly things like, can I pet your dog? And then it becomes like, well, like you see an image of a dog, an old lady holding a dog in the last panel, and then, oh, the next image is him walking up and seeing Pizza Dog right there. Oh, can I pet your dog? And he does that like nice, connective tissue to kind of keep you going from scene to scene to scene, even though they're taking place completely, chronologically out of order.
Totally. It kind of reminds me of the Arrested Development storytelling a little bit. Where it's that's the flashbacks move on to the, even flash with forwards. the flash forward, the flashback, and the narrator, like, but he didn't. And then kind of like, but it's like Hawkeye. And I love that too.
This is bad or whatever it is.
Right.
Or whatever it is. Yeah, he says.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I know this looks bad, but, and then it's him diving out of a window. And another storyline that's brought into the first couple issues is the famous femme fatale, trope with it's another redhead. He can't seem to get away from redheads, and a redhead with a very classic, nice car. What was that car again?
It was a 72 Challenger, I believe.
Right. It was the dream car, as they said in the blurb of the book.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. Even kind of going back to this issue, I believe that's where they make a recurring joke about the boomerang arrow in this. I think it's that issue. What's really cool though, and I only caught it on the reread, was that he says you've got to respect the boomerang arrow, and then at the end of he says that at the beginning of the issue, and then at the end of the issue, it's the same exact panel but flipped. And he's like,
I didn't even notice that.
Yeah, it's the same exact panel flipped, and then he says, it's the boomerang. It always comes back to you. It's like, boomerang. The whole thing came right back around again.
Oh my goodness, I love that. It's that's smart storytelling that they do.
Yeah, and that's the thing is like that's what I love about this book is it warrants the reread. Like you read it, and you're like, you almost warrants the reread in the moment. Like you'll go back and reread it again. You know what I mean? Like, and then on top of that, not only do you have, like I said, this like fun with storytelling and all that, it's also like just action packed, over the top lethal weapon action. Like dudes hanging outside of cars, firing putty arrows and all that fun stuff. It's such a great, and it's just in one issue,
Yeah, and what's also, I mean, with us action packed and just kind of like the Die Hard, we mentioned this too, like Die Hard and Lethal Weapon. But what's great with the art in this issue kind of keeps reminding you of how human Hawkeye is, because you see him going to the doctor, you see him with bandages on his face.
Oh yeah, you got a broken pelvis, you got a broken leg, you're gonna be hatched up for 6 weeks or whatever. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I think most of the time he has the breathe right strip over his nose, because he has like a broken nose most of the book.
Well, this goes back to the thing I had mentioned earlier about the ear being blown out when he blows his ears out in the original Hawkeye series. And Matt Fraction talks specifically about how that had a big impact on him as a kid. When he read the limited series, the Grunwald miniseries, and he blows his ears out, the following issue in Avengers, or maybe like a month or two later, it's the David Letterman issue. And the whole issue, he's like trying to like basically like not let anybody know he's deaf or 80% deaf. And so he's trying to get David Letterman's questions in advance so he can like answer them without letting anybody know. And he was like, wait a minute, like normally at the end of the comic, you get blown up in an explosion and you're fine the next issue. He's like, this is the first time he had seen an actual injury continue through as a through line. And that's why it's such a big part of this book is you see him get injured and it follows him through the issues,
I mean, who would have thought a David Letterman tie-in would have such a big impact on serious comic books?
I have that issue somewhere. I think it's like Avengers 239 or something like that. I'm like, David, like late night with David Letterman.
I mean, I guess he couldn't just hear his like the famous David Letterman laugh. Oh man, the top 10 really weird tie-ins of comic books that have a weird impact.
Coming in at number 9, SNL. Yeah. That's an issue.
Yeah, exactly.
The Marvel team up with Spider-Man and SNL.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
There's also when Jay Leno teamed up with them too.
Oh my good, I didn't even know that. I know about the Barack Obama one.
There's Jay Leno teamed up. There's anyway.
Yeah, we digress. That's a whole other episode.
Exactly.
Yeah, and when you were talking about just action-packed storytelling and just the storylines, one of the very first ones though too is a really fun story arc that he steals money from all these underground bosses from New York. You kind of like have a who's who of this underground group. It's led by Kingpin.
Yeah, Kingpin. Mr. Negative, I want to say, is in there.
Who was a new character at the time too.
Yeah, that's
cool
right.
to see him.
Tombstone,
the Owl, Hammerhead, which he's always in there, and then another character who you find out was in there later in the time, which is Kate Bishop's father.
Yeah,
and that's more touched on later on in the book, and then also just later on in her character arc and things like that. But he steals a bunch of money from them, and in a way, and that was just a fun. Just kind of I kind of took it. Did you ever see that movie, What About Bob?
Oh, you mean the Bill Murray movie?
Bill Murray movie where he just kind of accidentally does all this stuff because he's just, or no, not What About Bob? I'm sorry. It's another movie with Bill Murray, but he's like he's an accidental spy, and all this stuff kind of
too much.
Or something like that. Yeah,
and too little or something like that. I know what you're about. Yeah,
something like that. Yeah, no, I'm whatever brain.
It's
late. I gotta. It's a holiday. That's what it is. I'm drinking too much eggnog. That's what it is.
There you go. Holiday.
So, yeah, and it just kind of accidentally just kind of works its way out type of thing where he's like, oh yeah, I have a lot of money right now, and that's just that. I love that. Just the storyline and just him again not knowing the amount of shit that he just kind of rolled in.
He rolled himself in. Well, speaking of spies, I was gonna say, speaking of spies, that leads into like one of my favorite arcs, which even though it wasn't David doing the art on that one, it was the tape. And the premise is so simple. It's like there's a tape out there, a literal VHS tape that has you murdering a government, not like a government leader from another country under basically the orders of the Avengers, by extension under the orders of the president. And it's gonna get out there, and you're gonna basically bring shit down on the United States and the Avengers and you. You got to go get that tape back. And it's the only tape because everything's analog at this point because they know that analog is secure. And it's just like, again, that high octane James Bondian spoof. You know what I mean? Like it's like, and it's funny because like Matt Fraction talks about that was the initial pitch for the book, was this sort of James Bond-esque adventures. But he was like, I can't write this for 9 more issues. Like there's just no way. And they're like, it's like, it's fine to do this one adventure, but I can't do it for 9 more. And that's where he rewrote it to be more like the Avenger, on his day off, living in an apartment,
Yeah, and the whole thing where the underground boss is coming too, because the tape goes up for auction, right?
Yep. And that's the thing. It's like everyone's gonna bid on it.
Yeah, and they have more motivation because it is Hawkeye that they hear that's on this tape.
Again, it's one of the few like 2-issue arcs, but it pays off in the best way possible too. It's like you find like, where are they all scumbags? Not really, but maybe, but not really.
Right? It's they have a bunch of different twists, but all the twists make sense.
All the twists make sense. Yeah, it's just good comics.
And honestly, like a lot of the stories that happen in Madripoor, which this story does, are always fun because it's just one of those anything goes stories. Like he starts off with having all the money in the world from S.H.I.E.L.D. and then he loses it within the first 5 minutes, and then he starts just driving a cab, just trying to find information.
Well, and also like where he stored said money.
Yeah,
that's awkward.
It's very Hawkeye.
Just read it.
Yeah, just read it. It's, let's just say a lot of hands had to be washed after that.
Yeah. The thing is, I will say, I really did like, I know we're kind of running through a lot of the issues, but one of the things I really did like about this series too is it was still true to the character. A lot of times like artists or writers rather will take over a character and like, well, I want him to fit my mold for what I want to do in the story. So we'll take all his money away, or suddenly they have an inheritance or whatever the case may be. So it's like, oh, well, I want Hawkeye to be this, like lone Avenger. And so I'm going to do this thing to him. It's like, all the decisions that Fraction does are still in line with the character. It's like him living in a crappy apartment complex. Or like, he's an Avenger. Why the hell is he there? Well, no, in the Avengers comic, like Hawkeye lived in a shitty apartment. It wasn't until he got a job for like a corporation that he like actually moved up in the world. So it's like, this fits within the character to just be living in a tenement building, for lack of a better word. You know what I mean? I like that. It's like all the things that happen are still true to the character. It didn't have to be like shaken up and like to fit a mold that you wanted to fit him into. I'm not going to name names with certain writers, but it happens a lot.
We might have already named one of those writers.
No.
But yeah, it reminds you too, because you see it in different books too, where the other part of the Avengers, but they don't make a salary from it or a big like.
They make money, but it's just, they make insurance. They have insurance. We know that.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, it's kind of like a college almost. Like they're almost like on a college team where they have a per diem, and they can live at the Avengers Mansion. But if they want to live somewhere else, they kind of have to find their own stuff. That's why you see a lot of them have their own places. Like what other characters do that though? Like they started doing Miss Marvel, Fantastic Four, Captain Marvel, She-Hulk. She-Hulk dives into that too. For a while. So
well, there's that famous. It's one of the few Bendis, but not few, but it's one of the Bendis panels I like. When Iron Man offers him to join the team, Spider-Man to join the team, and Spider-Man's like, I don't know, man. He's like, we pay. He's like, thank you. I'll join.
Like, we have money. Oh, thank God.
Thank God.
It's everybody has their motivation. It was like Wolverine, we have beer, and then the Spider-Man, we have money. Oh, thank God.
It's true though. It's like it's like they do get paid. It's just not like it's the government wage,
Yeah, and they get room and board basically too. Yeah. It's just, I mean, Tony has money, but he only has enough money.
Oh, only enough for his beautiful mansion and buildings in West Coast to buy towers.
He can only have so many billions.
Yeah.
Duh. Yeah, we go back from Madripoor all the way back to New York, where he has to kind of recover kind of what happened when he was gone.
Yeah.
And the Tracksuit Mafia, these are the guys that kind of keep coming back.
Yeah.
Because the whole arc of the whole storyline too, I don't think we mentioned this, is just he has this apartment building that's in the middle of all this area that the Tracksuit Mafia people are buying out because it's a huge real estate deal.
Yeah, gentrification essentially.
Yeah, pretty much. And they're the standalone building, and because they wanted to raise rent and just to get people out of there. So that's why he's kind of he's the owner, and he's also the protector of just not only the building but these people that he's come to become like family almost.
Yeah, exactly that. And that's where a lot of the conflict arises, is them trying to like you said, he buys the building unwillingly from them, and then he's like, you have all this conflict coming to the building to try to force them out. Unfortunately, this leads to interpersonal conflict and, some personal dilemmas, et cetera, et cetera. One of the tenants get killed just to piss him off.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which honestly, and that's a character named Kazi who does this, who's the clown.
The clown assassin.
Well, and that kind of goes, going back to like I was talking about Francisco Francavilla, like kind of Francisco Francavilla does the backstory for Kazi the clown, who's this essentially like this circus performer who his family dies, then his friends die, and he just falls into the world of hitmanery, and like becomes a hitman, and like Francisco's handling in there is truly like not terrifying, but it's like it's scary. It's well done. It's really scary art, Yeah, it's just one of those things where like I think every artist really plays to their strengths and does it in a good way.
Totally. In the introduction of Kazi too, with even Black Widow is just warning Hawkeye. This is a guy who literally signs his kills. He doesn't need the anonymity. He's a guy that's so good and so big that you really need to worry about him. Like he's not just a run of the mill guy. And that just the introduction of that character with the Tracksuit Mafia and stuff is just, it's just it's another great Hawkeye villain. It works for the character. And so that leads to the issue with a certain canine superhero, not superhero, but canine
mascot.
Hero. Mascot, state mascot.
Yeah, Lucky the dog. In the first issue, he acquires this dog from the Tracksuit Mafia against their wishes again. But it's by feeding it pizza, and it becomes Pizza Dog. And like, it's all from the perspective of this dog. And you see, like, instead of thought panels, it's smell panels. That's how the dog is able to go through the issue. Although there are points where people say words, but it's only words like a dog would understand, like, like come, or, don't, or eat, or whatever. And which is great because you see this scene play out. And this is the scene where Kate eventually leaves Hawkeye. But then they replay the scene later on in another issue, and then you get all of the dialogue that actually played out there. Oh, that's cool. Like, it was planned out. And then they played out again in another issue when you see from Barney's perspective, who's Hawkeye's brother, So it's like I said, I love that the use of narrative and storytelling. But seeing an issue from the dog's perspective was just a great twist. We always see that we do see it a bunch in comics, actually. Like I said, there's a famous issue of Johnny Quest where it's from Bandit's perspective when he gets captured by dog nappers. There's that issue of Afterlife with Archie where you see it from the dog's perspective as he's trying to save Archie. And ironically enough, that's Francisco Fragovilla as well. So, there's Tony Fleek's book. Was it Stray Dogs?
Strays, right?
Strays or Stray Dogs. But yeah, it's all from the perspective of these poor dogs that are, they've been kidnapped by a serial killer who's killed their owners. So I always love when you can you can use art to explore a new perspective. And that's not the only time they do something like that in this series,
Yeah. And I love the details that Lucky has within, very, all the pictures. It's a full label, like very minimal words, like you said. And all just the pictures, like you said, the smell-o-vision, where
smell bubbles,
or when he goes down the stairs,
stairwell,
you see each door has like the familiar smell, or like what he knows about that door. Like, these type of people are in here. Pizza's in this one. I can smell food in this one. So it's a great issue, and like you're alluding to, there's another issue a little bit down the road.
Let's talk about it.
Or just a little bit down the road, we'll talk about it, because we've already mentioned that he kind of gets re-deafened.
Yeah, and that's why Kazi literally sticks 2 arrows down his freaking ear canals.
Yes, and it was brutal, like very brutal, just way. And from there, Clint is deaf again, and then there's a whole issue of him dealing with being deaf again, and then you see kind of a flashback where even back, he kind of retconned where he was a kid, he was hard of hearing, and
I think it's implied in that issue, like the implication is that his dad beat him so hard that it knocked out his hearing. That's the implication.
Oh, right, you gotcha.
Because part of his backstory is that him and his brother were both beaten by his father, and eventually the father gets into a car accident, dies, and then the brothers go off to an orphanage, and then from there, from the orphanage, they escape and they run to a carnival, and that's where he becomes Hawkeye, or something, for lack of. But yeah, exactly. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, it's not derailed. It's important information. It's but from there though too, like you see, they do it. It's like an ASL issue. So
yes,
you see the panels are people speaking in sign language, and him and Barney having their conversation to the side and things like that. Which I love that issue. It's very much a tour de force of writing and artistry.
Art. Yep. Well, that's the thing. It's great. Is like if the person isn't facing in front of him, he can't read their lips, so you don't hear their dialogue.
Which is so cool. Well, he's talking to Jessica, not Jessica Drew. Jessica Drew. Excuse me. Jessica Drew. Spider-Woman. Yeah, and she's
friend
like
girl.
Yelling at him. The friend girl. She's like yelling at him, and she turns away, and it's just up blank. You see the speech bubble, but there's nothing in it. And
I love
she turns back to him.
I love that you're like, are you looking at my lips because you're reading them, or you want to kiss me? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, why not both?
Why not both? But yeah, like I love that. And even then, like, he's not, when he's looking at people's lips as they're reading, he's like, son of a bench. Like he there's really great use of that throughout.
And even like at the beginning in the books too, like you're seeing it from his perspective of people talking. So even when he was in the first couple issues, you hear like blah blah blah, shield stuff, blah blah blah. Like,
yeah.
A lot of the books are from his, or a lot of this book is from his direct point of view.
Exactly. But it's not the only POV we do get, and we do get Kate Bishop's when she, like we said earlier, she leaves in the book at one point. She's like done with his stuff. It's like, you're not going to let anybody close to you. I'm out. I'm going to the West Coast. It's like, great, because they need a Hawkeye on that side. And we do get the sort of PI angle where it's Kate Bishop on the West Coast, trying to solve crimes as a superhero detective.
Yeah, and she seemingly has been cut off from her money, and she's doing everything on the West Coast with Lucky. She brings Lucky with her.
Yeah.
And I was in and out of this one.
Yeah,
those issues.
I'm going to be honest. Like, if I give the series a knock at all, it's not because I don't like the idea of Kate being on the East Coast, being a West Coast detective superhero. I love that idea. I love the idea of it all, like the sort of detective tropes that they kind of put into the book. Oh, here's your informant, and here's what's going on here, and that. All of it was fine. It just kind of comes out of nowhere. It just like it feels disjointed from the rest of the book. And I think maybe it's because it's a different artist as well. So it just feels like this like separate universe that's happening concurrently with the other book. And it didn't mesh as well as I had hoped, But if that's me knocking it, you know what I mean?
No, yeah, no, and I agree. It seemed like it was a soft pilot for a Kate-ish or series that they were going to try to do.
Well, they did.
They didn't work out.
They did. They ended up doing West Coast Avengers with her on the West Coast, living in Santa Monica, by the pier, and all that.
I think that came from it, but I think they were just trying to do a Kate single.
Yeah. It's fine. It's not bad. It's just it feels out of place, for lack of a better word.
It has one of my least favorite tropes in Marvel comics is the life model decoy.
Oh,
whenever LMDs are involved, I kind of almost tune out a little bit.
Yeah.
This just an easy trope to use, and I'm just I was over that. That wasn't my favorite part. I liked more of the just the
grounded,
the grounded, but also how it tied in. Just the it was kind of like LA Confidential in a sense, like dealing with all these this famous people. That music art. The music artist.
That was on that one. I did like that. I liked that one a lot too. Actually, that was a fun. The stories weren't bad. It wasn't like it was a bad arc or like there's bad art or bad storytelling or anything like that. It's just it felt out of place for me. And I had to kind of go back and reread. I'm like, wait, why is she leaving? Why is she gone suddenly? It just like I said, you do see that play out. You only get a snippet of it through the Lucky issue. And then in the annual, you find out specifically what happened. And then you get a little bit more context with the Barney issue as well. When it's like from Barney, it's like, so what's going on, pal? Anyway.
No, it was separate, and it felt separate when it should have just stayed within. And she eventually comes back anyway.
Yeah, she does for the big fight at the end. And, that's kind of it. There's a few other things that happen throughout the book, but I mean, that's the kind of general gist of it, I would say. Right, Josh?
Yeah, that and the general building. I like the general building standoff that they have at the end.
It's a great fight.
General building standoff. I just did a
I got it. General building.
It just showed them coming together as well. And the building as a whole, it's like, this is our home. Mm-hmm. We're going to fight for this. And you also kind of see the how scary those tracksuit mafia people are.
Yeah.
And how, some of the stuff was brutal, but it was a great final battle, if you could say, like, it's the standoff between each.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, the impact of the book can't be ignored. I mean, it really did kind of move, I think at the time, Marvel towards more of like character focused. You get things like Miss Marvel and all of that, kind of coming out of those issues. Like I said, there was a real focus on kind of like that Steve Lieber art where it was a little bit more grounded in its storytelling, like you're making it a little more realistic. That's why we get, Superior for Spider-Man and stuff to that effect. Mm-hmm. I really enjoyed the book, kind of looking back on it. Like I said, there's a reason it won the Eisners it did. I think it won like 4 or 5 Eisners and won Harvey Awards. They did some good stuff. I can't not recommend this book at all. I recommend this book.
Yeah,
100%.
there we go. Yeah,
there we go. Let's do that
as a stamp of approval. And then what I really liked about the impact though too was it shifted Hawkeye kind of being back to a full funnier character, because after he died, he got more serious.
Yeah.
The whole Ronin thing, they try to make him serious.
Yeah.
And just it kind of shifted him to being just not the Hawkeye that I liked, and this one kind of brought him back home, brought him back in the bullseye.
It's funny. I was say I did read a lot of like the Hawkeye stuff, and like not a lot of it's very good. Like some of the Hawkeye miniseries, like the one after his wife dies, like it's totally 90s edgelord. I'm dark and mysterious, and I'm upset with life. And like, meanwhile, the guy he's trying to save, his name is Rover. I'm not kidding when I say that. And like it has like the registered trademark on it. So anyway, like I did reread some of the more miniseries from like the 90s, like, and it's a bunch of edgelord stuff, and just like, what is going on here? But for the most part, like you said, he's this hot-headed, fun character who's cocky as hell and all of that. And I agree that this book brought him back to those kind of roots.
And then it led to the great, TV show that kind of came under the radar too with Marvel MCU, which was the Hawkeye,
absolutely,
with Jeremy Renner and Haley Steinfeld.
It's funny. I feel like that show gets lost. I know people like to talk a lot of shit about the Disney Plus of it all, and I'm one of them. That for the most part, I don't know if it was net positive or net negative. All the Disney Plus material that came out from Marvel and by extension Star Wars. I think that it's one of the shows that people forget about, and they don't remember. Like, no, this is a good show. Like I said, I rewatched all 6 episodes. It's like, this could have been a movie, but I'm glad it was a miniseries, and it worked as a miniseries. And like, honestly, like there's a lot of great like moments when Kingpin arrives at the end. It's like, you're a rotten. It was like, oh great, this is pizza shop.
Yeah, I think that's what was great about the TV show. Just like the book itself, it had more impact than you initially thought it would.
Yeah,
because let's just be real. When you first thought of the Hawkeye miniseries by Matt Fraction, who you didn't really know before, like he did stuff with Ben and David, you're like, okay, what's this?
Yes.
I'll check it out, but what kind of impact it's going to be? And then you're going to read it, and you're like, it had a big impact just on storytelling, and then the character itself, and then like you said, in the MCU storyline, it brought more of an impact of the Kingpin coming in there. So, and then they brought in the Swordmaster into and then more of the lore of Hawkeye with his family and the wife, and more. You see that he's more of a
everyman.
You see, everyman, but also you see his like the spy qualities of it. Yeah. Like when they're making his trick arrows, kind of like MacGyvering a bunch of stuff. Like it's 100% spy stuff. He's taking what he took, and then I love the use of the LARPers in that in the show. I thought it was just so fun. Like I fought Thanos.
I was like, do we get the skirt costume in the background in one of those LARPer shots, right? Which to me,
I think,
or at least with the horns and the because to me that's my favorite Hawkeye costume. I love the skirt and the cut off arms, the sleeveless, and the whole horns and all that. Like I love that version of Hawkeye. You know what I mean? Like, I know you're a fan of like the most current version, like the T-shirt, the sunglasses, and cool guy.
Well, I don't like the sunglasses so much, but I do like the T-shirt. I like the bare bones one, and they kind of bring that in the end of it. Like one of my when I was rewatching the show, and they brought in Echo too. Let's just talk about that, Echo, which is a great character in there, and then. One of my favorite moments is when he does the 3 arrow shot where he shoots an arrow and then he shoots another one. It splits the other 2. Yeah. And like it hits the 2 guys, and then the MCU he catches it, and he's just like, that's a nice shot. And just from like across the Rockefeller Center ice rink, he's like, yeah, no shit. It's just that is definitely like something that I could see in this Hawkeye book that we were talking about. Yeah. And he brought in Kate Bishop into the MCU, which Haley Steinfeld did a great job at, and it kind of like switched it a little bit too, like the characterization.
Yeah, she was a little more hot-headed and fly by the seat of their pants, whereas he was a lot more level-headed.
Yeah, and he knew what he was very more not grounded, but just like you said, level headed. Just
well, I mean, like it's like getting in is the hard part. Having your exit's the more important part, and then she just charges right. I was like, oh, that makes sense. Yeah, like you have 2 seconds to escape, but 3 minutes to get in. You know what I mean?
And then the Yelena stuff was just so good. I think it was the first kind of instance you could see somebody going through the snap
coming in and back out.
Yeah, or just the point of view of somebody getting snapped out, which I thought was amazing because it was very instant.
Again, I really think it's a good show. I don't think people sleep on it. I just think people forget about it more than anything else. It seemed like it just kind of got lost in in all of the Disney Plus of it all.
Very true. Yep. I love the in Disneyland too. They had the Avengers the musical going on, and you couldn't
Rogers the musical.
Rogers the musical, and you couldn't get in. I couldn't get in. I had an annual pass, and I couldn't get in because the lines were so long just to see that.
That's hilarious.
It was so good. And I think you had a very important question. I think we need to discuss.
I mean, this is a discussion for a whole episode, but quick. Who wins in the fight, Hawkeye or Green Arrow?
It's so tough because they're so different.
So they're exactly the same character, minus the money. Minus the money, sure. They are exactly the same character. And I mean, not exactly the same, but you know what I mean. Like they're both excellent marksmen,
Yeah, and I think just on the basis, I do kind of like Green Arrow's origin a little bit better, where he's stuck on an island, and then he had to become a marksman out of survival, which I do like Hawkeye as a character a little bit more because I like more of the everyman because Green Arrow started to become
he was also a billionaire at one point.
Yeah, and he became more of like a Batman light in a sense, like the Batcave, the Arrow Cave, the
Arrow family. He's got the Arrow family now too,
right? That family. Too, and who would win in a fight?
I mean, I'm going to be honest. Like, I am a Marvel kid. I tend to side towards Hawkeye anyway, just because of my Marvel roots. I do think that, again, I think he's got the cooler costume. I think Robin Hood light over on the Green Arrow side, with a Robin Hood. I mean, I'm not trying to disrespect Green Arrow, but, it's very Robin Hood.
Full on disrespect the Green Arrow.
But, the thing I think that makes Hawkeye a better character, and this isn't necessarily who wins in the fight, is because of his origin. He did start off as a villain and had to redeem himself. It's kind of like that nice, it's that Spider-Man thing where it's like, I made a mistake, I corrected this mistake, and now I'm going to be someone better. And in the Marvel universe, it showed that, hey, people can change. You know what I mean? The problem with like a lot of the DC characters, like it's always like billionaires or these like bigger than life personalities that have like fallen into these roles, whether it's Clark Kent, who's like, oh, he's just this huge dude who's a great reporter, or Bruce Wayne, or what I mean, they're all like usually like top of their field. It's like, no, the human aspect of the Marvel kind of comes into it for me. That said, in a fight, I mean, I think it just comes down to personal preference. I think they're so equally matched on like almost every level. It's like one was trained by Batman, the other was trained by Captain America. Okay, you know what I mean? Like, well, crap, I mean, I guess you could argue that because Green Arrow kind of self-taught himself, he probably has less skills than as opposed to Hawkeye, who like trained under Trick Shot and under the Swordsman and all of that. But I digress.
Yeah, I mean, I think what I like just about the Green Arrow's origin is that he was broken down to the base, and then he became back, and he kind of appreciated more. You've seen his character a little bit more, like he became more of a civil rights and
I love the social,
that social,
social justice warrior.
Yeah. So I mean that kind of stuff I did like. It's really hard to because both. Yeah, it's literally a coin toss. I mean,
it's a coin toss. It's the Batman Cat versus Captain America fight almost.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't even think they had them fight each other during the whole DC versus Marvel storyline.
I don't think that in JLA Avengers, I know they like get in each other's shit and they're both like firing arrows and like mocking, and it's like, oh, you guys are the same person. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's not like a Flash Quicksilver type of thing where Flash is definitely
gets ass kicked.
Yeah. And I mean,
even a question.
It's kind of like at the end of Rocky 2, Apollo Creed and Rocky, going for that first punch, but he just stops right there. We don't know who would win. I think it's whoever is in your head canon.
Yeah, I think that's it right there, and that's the answer. Like I said, I if I'm being on, and I'm trying to be completely transparent, if I had to pick, I'd go with Hawkeye, but I have no reason outside of a coin flip and just personal preference.
Yeah, I think it depends on the Hawkeye and whose version of Hawkeye. I would think.
Well, and that's a good
point. Green Arrow.
Well, it's Ollie, and the other thing too is it Ollie versus Clint. Oh
yeah.
Speaking, one last thing before we get into finish this up. One of the things I also loved, and I'm wondering, I have to believe it was intentional. The way they spell Clint in all the books, it looks like it's CLINT, but you move that I is very close to that L. It looks like CUNT. And if you read it, and I think that was intentional. And if you, because you're such a bonk, at C word. I'm like, yeah. I'm like, and if you kind of read it with that, like it's like it kind of changes the book a little bit. I don't know. Like I know that. I do think it was intentional, though. If you look at it, because the lettering is very. Is that the C word right there? It could be. Anyway,
before though we give our final thoughts and just other books of Hawkeye fans. One thing, just to go back, just of the humanization of Hawkeye himself. Yeah. Just real quick. One of the things I like about Hawkeye, like we've said, is just the different things he needs to do to be on the same level of all these people. So. One great depiction of it is in the Ultimates, where I really like it was like he's part of the Black Ops team, but there's a scene where it's him in Black Widow, and they're kind of taking out this whole sleeper cell area, and Black Widow's doing her regular quips of like, oh yeah, this is great, hey, you can do that, and then you just hear Hawkeye just like, can you stop talking? Some of us aren't these enhanced beings, and I need to concentrate and actually take these guys out. Please keep the chatter down. Yeah. So it was just like a reminder. It's like, oh yeah, he's a regular guy. He needs to concentrate on this stuff.
Well, I mean, the whole Ultimates version of Hawkeye is that's a whole other discussion. Fingernail kills.
Oh yeah, when we talk about the Ultimates, which is again one of my favorite books of all time, we will get deep into the volumes 1 and 2. I'm going to be very clear on that.
You're not talking about volumes 3? Oh, come on. Ultimates 3?
Oh, God, no. That was,
Jeff Loeb, Joe Madureira? Come on.
Man.
Some light incest with Venom as well as a backup character? Please.
It is the most, waste of Joe Madureira I've ever seen.
It's beautiful
ever.
Art.
But, exactly. It's such a waste of it. But, no, let's not talk about that. We're talking about happiness. We're talking about fun. Talking about great stuff with Hawkeye.
Speaking of happiness, what are some books for fans who like this book and want more?
Well, one book that I think you have to read if you like this book, you like this team, have to read the Iron Fist.
Absolutely.
You hear the passion in my voice when I just said half. That's part of me.
You must know,
but
nay,
you must. You must. It's Brubaker and Matt Fraction, David and. It's Iron Fist mixed with, it's one of the first kind of times they do this whole Mortal Kombat type of storyline, where all the different 7 cities of having come together for this tournament to be the one that's connected to Earth, basically.
Yeah, it's excellent.
It's so good. It has great new characters like Fat Cobra, and Luke Cage is in it. The Heroes for Hire. Hydra has a part in it.
It's again one of those books, kind of like this book. You're like, you have no expectations of it. You're like, whatever. It's Iron Fist. He can't hold a book on his own anyway. And this just makes you a lifelong Iron Man fan, or Iron Fist fan. Excuse me. It really does.
And it delves deep into the other Iron Fist as well, deep into his origin before.
Orson Randall. Was it Orson Randall?
Yeah, Orson Randall. Yeah, which is the World War II Iron Fist. It's a great read. Yeah, it's really good, and they took some of that from to the Netflix show. So, which we won't judge it on that. But what's another book that you read?
Well, real quick, if you're wanting more Hawkeye, like I said, there's a book that was called Solo Avengers, and essentially, I want to say 21 or 40. I'm going to say 21, 22 issues. Maybe that's where they changed it, just like something else. But anyway, essentially, it's 2 concurrent stories. You have the first half is Hawkeye's story. It's a story that tells his origin and kind of goes through his life, and the other half is backups. This is a Moon Knight backup, and the next one's a Black Widow backup, the next one's a whatever backup. but it's called Solo Avengers, and it's just like, oh, this is Hawkeye, just out kicking ass. It has one of my favorite stories, and I talk a lot about how like some of these comics were really formative for me, or really like impacted me in my formative years. And it was like number 4 where he gets captured by Silver Sable, and he literally has no weapons, and he's like forced to like, okay, I've got this prison cell, how am I going to get out? And he breaks apart his bed to like take out 2x4s, and as soon as the guards come in, boom, throws them at their face and uses that to escape. And this is great, like acrobatic action adventure that's done in basically like 12 to 16 pages. It's not all good. It's not all great stuff, but I really enjoyed that issue. I mean, like, real quick, another one is he's like, I got to go to Paris to go fight, Trick Shot. And his wife, Bobby's like, yeah, you ain't going there. He's like, you're right. I'll go cash in the ticket. Hold still, like, cash you. And he cashes his wife.
So, oh, goodness.
They get on a plane. And then, of course, he gets back, hey, honey, smash. She just smashes him in the face. I'm like, I love it. He just gasses his wife so he can go off to Paris.
It's like a pocket sand. Ha!
Yeah, it literally was that. He's like, you're right, honey. Gas arrow. Like, Jesus.
Oh, my goodness. And then it just sounds really fun, too. The MacGyver-ish and just like it seems like that's his thing in that, too. Is like, surprise.
Well, he has to be. Yeah.
Surprise. And another book like we mentioned earlier, too, is definitely have to check out Young Avengers. It's Alan Heinberg and Jim Chung. So that's an artist I made a fool of myself when I saw him at a convention and asked for his a print with his autograph, and I forgot his name. I think I called him
Jim Lee. Did you?
No. I called him like John Chung or it was so bad. It was like one of my worst moments.
Hi, James.
Exactly. I put that up there with my Rob Paulson interaction when I first met Rob Paulson. Which, like a little side story, just for my embarrassment, so we all can laugh at Josh over here. When Brian was at Nerdist, he had a show. It's like Talking Tunes, and Rob Paulson was the host, and you had a special episode with all the Justice League voice actors,
and Conroy and all them.
He graciously let me show up and watch the taping and stuff, and I was so like already starstruck because it was Kevin Conroy. It was
Conroy.
It's all the people. It was Susan. Yeah, I mean,
Maurice Lamosley. I was like, oh, Phil Lamar,
Phil Lamar, and then Susan Eisenberg. Who I've actually met like when I did work. I worked with her before.
Rosenbaum was there too. I mean,
Michael Rosenbaum. Yeah, it was all of them. It was amazing, and I was wearing, because I was cool. I was going to Nerdist. I'm going to wear a cool nerd shirt. I was wearing this Goofy movie shirt. It was like Lester's Possum Park. If my fellow goofheads know exactly what I'm talking about. And I mean, first of all, I'm meeting Rob Paulson, who's the voice of my childhood. He was Pinky and Pinky and the Brain. He was Yakko and Animaniacs. And then, if you know me, I'm a huge fan of the Ninja Turtles.
What are those?
Yeah, it's the 4 amazing brothers who fought evil and ninjas for their Master Splinter. I could go on, but so the original cartoon, Rob Paulson was the voice of Raphael. So it was like, I went up, he came by to me, he was like, hey, how's it going? I'm like, oh, we're good. I just want to say I'm a huge fan. You're the voice, of like my childhood with the Ninja Turtles. He got that all the time, of course. And then he saw my shirt and he's like, oh, I was in that one too. I was like, oh yeah, you were. And Nate, the aforementioned Nate, he was right next to me. He walks away. He doesn't
I would have too.
Yeah, he just walked away like he didn't even know me. He turned his shoulder.
You just look exactly alike.
I know,
not exactly alike, but you're close enough.
He turned his just cold shoulder to his brother, and I literally, I just see, I'm flabbergasted still. Of just how bad.
You're lucky I was there. I would have escorted you out of the building. Yeah,
I might have. I would have fought you. I was so bad. It's just like, I just can't.
To be fair, Rob's used to that stuff. Like, and he's a good guy. Like, I really like Rob.
So. He was the nicest person, and he definitely, it was, you could tell in his eyes. It's like, oh my god, yeah, another one. But but he definitely didn't think that. He just like that's my own insecurities on myself.
He's used to it. He's used to it. Like, I remember when I met him, he's like, oh, he's like, yeah, I was, so and so, and in G.I. Joe. I was like, holy shit, you were. I was like, that's cool.
It's just like this. this guy gets it all the time, and
he does.
he's so gracious about it.
He's gracious about it. He also enjoys it. Like, to be honest,
Yeah,
like, he's like he really did. But he's a good guy.
Yeah, no, he's a very, very nice guy. So, and Young Avengers, going back to that little tangent there, just a little backstory into one of my most embarrassing moments of my life. It's, again, we talked about it earlier, but again, it's the Iron Lad comes back from the future, sets up a team of all these legacy heroes, and they fight different Avenger bad guys. Really, they fight Kang right away. Yep. So, and you introduce Billy, you know him as Teen and Agatha all along. They delve more into just where all these heroes come from, which is great. So that's one. And then another one too that I really like, it was Occupy Avengers.
Yeah.
Which is kind of brought Hawkeye back to his roots of just going for the little guy. So this is after Civil War too. This is after the Matt Fraction stuff. And he kind of goes back to areas where they don't necessarily have Avengers to fight the battle. So he's fighting for the little man again. So
I was like
another book you like.
Yeah.
Like they did one that's kind of like that was the Wade Captain America. It was after the whole Hydra Cap stuff where
when he goes on a cross-country trip,
which is great.
That was his third run on the character. Get that right, man.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I know.
Hey. Which, speaking of which, his second run actually has a really good issue with Hawkeye. I think it's Captain America #4. It's after Cap lost his shield and he's using the old triangle shield, and it's just him and Hawkeye fighting Batroc the Leaper in Rockefeller Center. It's just a good issue. And it's great art. Ron Garney kills it in that stuff, man. But another fun issue for a good Hawkeye breed.
That's awesome. And then so those are just really good books that we think you should check out if you like this one. Now, Brian, do you have any final thoughts on the book? Would you recommend?
Yeah, I honestly pick it up. This is an instant A. Maybe an A- for somebody who said some of the stuff where, like I said, it kind of it feels disjointed, but it's an A. Just be honest. This is the epitome of a reread book. You read it and you can reread it and get something new pretty much every time. I think when you said Arrested Development, I think that was more accurate than I think you knew. Because that was still, it's true. There was something about Arrested Development where you go back and I didn't catch that joke because why? I was setting that up. I never thought I'd miss a hand before, and then later on he loses his hand. It had a lot of those kind of elements in this book, and like you said, even to you when I pointed out the boomerang, it comes back around. It's the same exact panel reversed because it's a boomerang. It's a boomerang to that panel. There's a lot of that stuff. You don't win the Eisner, 4 or 5 times without doing something right. And
they don't just hand those out.
No,
they kind of do. Kind of do.
But. No, but I mean, in all seriousness, they don't. You have to earn them. And this is up there with I have I have all the singles, and I think that's the key right there, where it's I have these in singles and I have these in hardcover. That's where I think it's okay, that's a testament to how important this is to me. It's to have them in the single issues and then have a hardcover larger edition that I can really get into. And I think where I have that for this. I have this for Marvels, honestly, I have it for the Authority as well. I'm picking out the books we love, and this is one of them.
This has been kind of the opportunity of us choosing which books, because we're just kind of loving the books that we're talking about.
Yeah.
So you got to kind of hear us gush about it, and this definitely earns that. I love this book as well. This, like I said earlier, this book kind of got me loving comics again. It's the minimalist usage of the art, but also just the impact of the art and of the storyline. I love fun books. I love fun storylines, and this is one of them. Like you said, it's one of the ones that at the time I was doing more trade reading, and this is one of the ones I read month to month.
Yeah,
and so this is I definitely cannot recommend this book enough, especially if you've been away from comics for a while. It's just great intro back into comics.
Well, and again, you don't need to know all of the mountains of history of Hawkeye and he was in this issue and that issue. It's no, it's you just need to know he's an Avenger and this is what he does on his days off. Go. That's it.
Yes.
And I think that's the beauty of it.
You're not bogged down.
Yeah, you're not bogged down by details.
Yes.
But it's still in character. It's still within the universe. It still fits with everything. But this is what he does when he's not fighting Thanos. Go.
And like we've said in other books, this is one where you could definitely branch out to the other books. Like, oh, this character shows up. I want to read more about this guy.
Yeah.
Like, oh, Kingpin. Case in point, Mr. Negative.
Yeah.
Like, where did Mr. Negative come back from? Like,
yeah.
Why do I like? He looks cool. What's more about him that I want to read? So go into Spider-Man, and I like this writer. I like this artist. It just branches out to more books. So it's definitely, I think, one of our top recommendations. So we got a stamp of an A approval.
Stamp of 100% approval.
So now that we've discussed that, and thank you for listening to us discuss about Hawkeye, now we're going to present time, like our non-linear storytelling that Hawkeye had. Present time, what books are you reading currently? Like, what would you recommend that's on you've been reading this week?
Yeah, I've been bogged down with a bunch of stuff just because of holiday stuff, but I've managed to kind of catch up on a lot of my DC and some of the bigger books. But not to bog all that down, I'm really enjoying the Batman books right now, specifically Detective Comics, as well as there's a new miniseries by Dan Waters called Batman Dark Patterns. Really good stuff. The other book I'm really, really loving is by Joe Casey. It's Johnny Quest. I know it sounds weird, but it is excellent, and the art is great. I thoroughly recommend that. Go check it out.
Yeah, you're like a closet Johnny Quest fan, I think.
I'm not, though. That's the ironic thing. My mom liked it a lot. I wasn't like a huge thing on it. Like, ironically enough, Rob Paulson voiced one of the characters on it, but that all said, like, I'm not really, but I've been really enjoying like a lot of these like throwback comics, like
Dick Tracy, also
Flash Gordon, etc.
Yeah, but also, what's Venture Brothers? It was a big like Johnny Quest
action
parody, and and you love that show. So I'm saying like, I think there's some rooted Johnny Quest kind of in the closet, like love for it.
Sure.
I'm trying to dig deep. This is Brian.
Hold on.
Brian, I'm sorry to break it to you. This is not a We Got Issues episode. This is a intervention and a therapy session for you. We're trying to deep dive into your
what issues psyche. Do I really have?
Yeah, exactly. It's not We Got Issues. It's Brian's Got Issues, and I'm your therapist, Dr. Josh Markwood. It's been a long time.
Brolin.
Oh God. Oh, and we brought that back up.
It's full circle, baby.
Yeah, and my picks of the week is Ultimates has been killing it every month, but my book that I brought back into the rotation because it's the holidays and it's just another fun book. And I know I've mentioned this name almost every episode, but he is just in my Rolodex, and I didn't even notice it until I started reading again. But it's a book by Grant Morrison, but also drawn by the one and only Dan Mora. Of course. And it's a book called Klaus. I keep saying Klaus, but it's Claus. Because it's spelled Klaus. I keep saying Klaus, but it's Claus. And it's this weird semi-origin story about Santa Claus. Yes, that Santa Claus. But it's mixed in like he's Conan the Barbarian. And it deals with like him being an action Conan Barbarian, like kind of dude. And then there's also like intergalactic stuff. There's interdimensional stuff. There's magic. It's everything you want in a Santa Claus origin and more, written by Grant Morrison and drawn by Dan Mora. That's my recommendation if you want to get into the holiday spirit.
Nice. Well, on that note, speaking of holidays, happy holidays to everyone out there.
Why don't you give us a gift of subscribing to us on Instagram and Blue Sky,
or subscribe to our podcast. And while you're there subscribing, give us a 5-star rating, like Hondi Lar did, who wrote us a very, very kind review on Apple iTunes.
We got a review?
Yeah, they said Josh and BComp are like the dynamic duo of nerdy brilliance. Their combined knowledge of pop culture, it's basically a superpower. Even the most hardcore fanboys will be left speechless, questioning their own trivia cred. Thank you so much. That is very kind. Yeah, that's very kind.
We got a review. We got a sponsor. We got a theme song. Oh my God, we're an actual podcast.
Yeah, but no, I mean, all seriousness, that's very kind of you. Look, at the end of the day,
that's very kind.
We're just two nerds who really love this stuff. Yeah. I mean, and I really mean that. Like, I'm not trying to pretend to be like some like guru or like brilliant person. I read a lot. I like a lot. I remember a lot of it for some weird reason. And I just want to share that. I want to share this love I have of it. And I'm sure that's the same way you feel, Josh.
Oh, totally. I mean, I can't do remedial math, but I can tell you, all the origins of Spider-Man, like most of the origins of like superheroes and who fought who and when.
Yeah.
And so, I really appreciate everybody listening too. It's been
thanks again. Condi Lar was who that was.
Yeah. I think this is in all honesty, like this has been a dream project for Brian and I for a while. So we've talked about this for a long time, and this is it's a blessing that we have something to record, but it's also that people listen. So I just blown away.
Well, and to that end, we're TBD on the next episode. I'm sure we'll figure it out. I talked about doing like a best of, but I think we're past that point. If you do have any suggestions, though, feel free to hit us up on the Blue Sky or the Twitter or the Blue Sky or the Instagram, because I don't really do Twitter and it's called X now and I don't care anymore. But let us know. We'd love to hear what you all think and what you'd like to hear and talk about.
Yeah. Well, also, I mean, it's We Got Issues Cast on Instagram. It's We Got Issues on Blue Sky. Yeah, kind of tell them where to go. And then
just find us. Find us.
Yeah, find us. Google it. No,
yeah, that's true.
We Got Issues Cast on in Instagram, and Blue Sky is just We Got Issues. And then where can they find you, Brian, on Blue Sky?
It's just the BComp. That's, like I said, that's on the Blue Sky. I'm on the Twitter still. I just don't know how much I'm going to use that. But
we've kind of moved away from Twitter
entities. That all said, thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you again for listening. Again, like Brian said, it's TBD on the next episode. May just do a what's to come in 2025.
Yeah.
Who knows? I might just just lock us down for that on air.
Now I can not show up.
Yeah. I was just gonna do my Josh episode. Yeah, it's going to be a Josh episode, me just going uhs and ums. No, but thank you again for listening. Please keep an eye out on the socials for what our next issue is, and we might even throw some images of what we've been talking about so you can see like more of instances and examples so it get you to really read the book.
I agree.
So on that note. On that note, thanks again, everybody.
Peace.